Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. For your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. You're divine, my divine. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. For your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. You're divine, my divine. In my own community of Sanctuary Boston, a UU congregation that meets on Wednesday evenings, we have a saying which is, we're going to begin with some singing, and then we're going to do some singing in the middle, and then we're going to finish up with some singing. And that's how we're going to do it this morning. And I invite you to sing along for all of our music this morning in whatever way your spirit needs. If the words elude you and you just want to hum along, that's okay. That's just as good. And if you need to just sit in silence and just soak in the sound of the room, that's okay too. That's just as good. And if what you need this morning is to rock out like you're alone in the car with your radio, this is your morning to do it. I invite you to join me in singing this song. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Again. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go for your people. For your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. You're divine, my divine. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. For your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. You're divine, my divine. Our next song is Come, Come, Whoever You Are. Do some of you know this one? We're going to try it just a little differently than you may have heard it before. So I'm going to sing it once through on my own, and then we'll try it together. Come, come, whoever you are, wander, worshipper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again, come. Can we try that? Come, come, whoever you are, wander, worshipper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again, come. One more time. Come, come, whoever you are, wander, worshipper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come. Sounds good. I invite you to rise in body or spirit. We'll do it a couple more times. You may know that the words to this song were written by Sufi mystic Jalaluddin Rumi. When Rumi was just a small child at 5 years old or so, he had to leave his homeland to flee his city with his family because of impending war and political unrest. And so he and his family traveled to what at the time must have felt like the other ends of the earth, and they settled down in the city of Konya, where Rumi grew up to become a teacher to people of many religious traditions, but deeply grounded in his Sufi Islam faiths. So as we sing this song of welcome and invitation, let's remember that it's a song of welcome written by a stranger, written by an undocumented immigrant. And it's a song of welcome and invitation written by a Muslim political refugee. Let's welcome each other into this space, and let's think of those who are still searching for a community of love and safety, just like this one. Like you mean it this time. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshipper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come. That sounds good, a little louder. Come, come, whoever you are, wander, worshipper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come again. Come, come, whoever you are, wander, worshipper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come one more time. Come, come, whoever you are, wander, worshipper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come yet again. Come yet again, come one more time. Come yet again, come. You sound good, amen.
Greetings, friends, and welcome to worship at Unity Church. And welcome to this time that we set aside each week to open ourselves to transformation, that we might experience wonder, open-hearted engagement, and courageous action. I want to give a special shout out to those of you watching us online this morning. Wherever you are very much a part of our worshiping community. We're glad you're joining us. And for both our online members and guests, you should know that your gifts and your wounds are welcome here. I'm Reverend Kathleen Rollens. I have the pleasure of serving as your interim senior minister, and today we are delighted to welcome Matt Meyer to the pulpit and who's leading the service. Matt Meyer is a lifelong Unitarian Universalist with a long background as a musician and worship leader in Unitarian Universalist congregations. Matt lives in Boston but travels as an itinerant worship leader, bringing the good news of Unitarian Universalism to hundreds of congregations all over the country. He serves as Director of Operations for Sanctuary Boston, which those of you who may not have heard of it, it's a contemporary UU worship community with rockin' music, I have no doubt about that, and engaging worship that meets on Wednesday evenings online and in person. Matt's children's story, Desmond Gets Free, was just published last year as a book by our very own Skinner House Press, and I'm proud to say it just recently won a Nautilus Award for social justice in children's fiction. So, yes, I think that merits some appreciation. And to get a copy for your child, teacher, or any justice maker in your life, you can pick up a copy here at church or at church after worship, or see Matt, who will be at a table in the parish hall after today's service. So, deep breath. Because now is the time to put aside the demands of the day, put down the phones or put them on silent, settle in, breathe, remember why you are here as we call down a blessing on this gathering.
Our call to worship this morning is in song, and I invite you to join me. Your part goes like this. Call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down. Call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down. Let's try that. Call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down. Call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down. Beauty above us, beauty before us, beauty within us and beauty between us. So call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down. Call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down. Love above us, love before us, love within us and love between us. So call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down. Call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down. And the words for our chalice lighting this morning come to us from Adrienne Marie Brown, who says, "Let us measure success by how many of us can say, I am living a life I don't regret. a life that will resonate with my ancestors and with as many generations forward as I can imagine. I am attending to the crises of my time with my best self, and I am of communities that are doing our collective best to honor our ancestors and all generations to come. And she goes on to ask, how can we, the future ancestors, align ourselves with the most resilient practices of our species? Our next song is Bright Morning Star. It's number 357 in your hymnal, but we're going to use different words than in the hymnal and also a different melody. Your hymnal cannot save you now. I assure you it's the same song, though. The version we're going to do goes like this. Bright morning star arising, bright morning star arising, bright morning star arising. Day is a breaking in my soul. Can we try that? Bright morning star arising, bright morning star arising, bright morning star arising. Day is a breaking in my soul. That sounds pretty good. That sounds good. All right, please rise in body or spirit. And this time I'm going to invite you to sing it as if you know it well. This is a great place to make some mistakes. Here we go. Bright morning star. Bright morning star arising, bright morning star arising, bright morning star arising. Day is a breaking in my soul. Rise up from morning slumber. This is a good verse for us this morning. Rise up from morning slumber, rise up from morning slumber, rise up from morning slumber. Day is a breaking in my soul. Rise up and hear your calling. 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 Day is a breaking in my soul. Can we add some rhythm like this? 1, 2. Bright morning star arising, bright morning star arising, bright morning star arising. Day is a breaking in my soul. Oh, lift your voice to heaven. 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 Day is a breaking in my soul. That's pretty good. Can we do that one again, but maybe with like 5-part harmony? That just means sing something different than the person next to you. Pick a note, and as I learned from a mentor of mine, Nick Page, sing it until it doesn't sound good anymore, and then pick a new note. Can we try it? Right? Well, oh, lift your voice, right? Sorry. Oh, lift your voice to heaven. Oh, lift your voice to heaven. Oh, lift your voice to heaven. Day is a breaking in my soul. We'll build this faith together. Here we go. We'll build this faith together. We'll build this faith together. We'll build this faith together. Day is a breaking in my soul. And bright morning star rising. Bright morning star rising. Morning star rising. Day is a breaking in my soul. Day is a breaking. Day is a breaking in my soul. Day is a breaking slowly. Day is a breaking in my soul. Oh, we got more than 5 parts there. Yes, you're in the right place. All right, let's take a deep breath. You may be seated as you exhale. Well, I'd love to share this story with you all. Today's service is about this understanding of success that Adrienne Marie Brown offers us. a different idea of success, one that has to do with honoring our ancestors and respecting future generations to come, and attending to the crises of our time with our best selves, even when it's difficult, even when the work is complicated, even when we have more questions about it than answers. And that means questioning things as we find them around us in the world. And so I have just the story for you. Now, Desmond the mouse lived in the most beautiful meadow in all the land. Every morning, Desmond would wake with the sunrise and spend the whole day long playing in that meadow. And every night, Desmond would go to sleep right in the middle of that meadow under the beautiful starry sky above. One night, though, Desmond woke to find that it was still dark out. So he tried to roll over and get more comfortable and go back to sleep, but something wasn't right. He could barely move, and his tail was throbbing with pain. Reaching behind him, he felt that there was, it felt like some sort of huge boulder had fallen just on his tail in the middle of the meadow. He tried pushing on this giant boulder, this huge rock, with all of his strength to push it away. When that didn't work, he tried tugging on his tail, tugging to get loose, tugging with all of his might. And he tried pushing and tugging and tugging and pushing over and over and over again. But it was no use. He was stuck. And when he was out of breath and had just about given up, he saw another animal pass by through the meadow. It was a tall giraffe. And so he called out, "Oh, giraffe, it seems that some sort of boulder has fallen just on my tail in the middle of the meadow. If you could use your powerful legs to just push it, even just a few inches in the other direction, I could get free." Well, the giraffe laughed at Desmond the way giraffes do. "You silly mouse," he said. "That's no boulder that's fallen on your tail in the middle of the meadow. That is an elephant that's fallen asleep on your tail in the middle of the meadow." Well, that seemed like good news, Desmond thought. He asked, if you could just gently wake the elephant up and ask him to roll over even just a few inches in the other direction, I could get free. "I don't know about that," said the giraffe. Surely you know what they say about letting sleeping elephants lie. "I find it's best not to get involved in other animals' business. I find it's best to remain neutral in times like these." Well, Desmond said, "I do not appreciate your neutrality." The giraffe wandered off, leaving Desmond alone again. And so he tried shouting to wake up the elephant, but his little mouse voice was just too far away from those giant elephant ears at the way other end of that giant elephant body. The elephant didn't budge. So he tried pushing on the elephant to push it away, didn't move. He tried tugging on his tail, tugging with all of his might to get loose, didn't work. But he had nothing else to do, and so he tried again. He tried shouting and pushing and tugging and tugging and pushing and shouting and pushing and tugging and tugging and pushing and shouting until he had just about given up when he saw another animal pass by through the meadow. This time it was a gazelle. And so he called out, "Oh, gazelle, it seems that an elephant has fallen asleep just on my tail in the middle of the meadow. If you could just gently wake him up and ask him to roll over even just a few inches in the other direction, I could go free." "I don't know about that," said the gazelle. Surely you must know what they say about letting sleeping elephants lie. "I find it's best not to get involved in other animals' business. I find it's best to remain neutral in times such as these." Well, the gazelle wandered off, and Desmond said almost to himself this time, "I do not appreciate your neutrality." One last time, Desmond tried shouting with all of his voice. He tried pushing with all of his strength. He tried tugging with all of his might, and he tried shouting and pushing and tugging and tugging and pushing and shouting over and over and over again, till he had just about given up for the last time when he saw another animal pass by through the grass. And this time, it was another mouse. And when he shouted out, that mouse ran right over, and he introduced himself. He said, "My name is Nelson. What seems to be the problem?" Well, no sooner had Desmond explained the situation than Nelson ran all the way to the other end of that giant elephant body, and he shouted up to those giant elephant ears at the top of that giant elephant head. He said, "Excuse me. It seems you've fallen asleep on my friend's tail in the middle of the meadow. If you could roll over just a few inches in the other direction, he could get free." Well, the elephant heard Nelson's little mouse voice way down on the ground, but his voice was just a bit too quiet. And those giant elephant ears at the top of that giant elephant head, they're just a bit too far away. And between you and me, well, I think maybe that elephant was just a bit too comfortable. So he didn't budge. Nelson thought about this for a moment, and then he ran back to Desmond and he said, "I think I might have an idea. Stay right here, don't move." And he ran into the grass, leaving a confused look just like that on Desmond's face. And just when Desmond was starting to get worried again, he saw Nelson emerge back through the grass. But this time he wasn't alone. He had found 3 other mouse friends. And each of them, they had each done their job. They had each found another 3 friends to join. And the whole group of them ran all the way to the other end of that giant elephant body. And one mouse, she climbed up on the shoulders of another mouse. And another mouse came and climbed up on her shoulders. And they climbed up one by one till they made a whole mouse ladder right up the back of that giant elephant head. And eventually, Nelson climbed up the shoulders of his friends one by one until he stood at last right at the opening of that giant elephant ear. And he shouted with all of his voice, "Excuse me! It seems you've fallen asleep on my friend's tail in the middle of the meadow. Roll over just a few inches so he can go free." Well, this time his voice was just too close and just too loud to ignore, and so the elephant said, but then he rolled over just a few inches in the other direction. Nelson and his friends climbed back down to the ground carefully, and they met up with Desmond, and the whole group of them spent the rest of that day playing together in the meadow. Archbishop Desmond Tutu had said that if you say you are neutral in situations of injustice, you've already taken sides. You've taken sides with the powerful, and you've taken sides with the oppressor. Archbishop Tutu went on to say that if an elephant is standing on the tail of a mouse will never appreciate your neutrality. And Desmond Tutu believed in a God who he said took sides, a God who he said took sides with the orphan and with the widow and with the oppressed everywhere. As Unitarian Universalists, we may not share a belief in that same God, but we have covenanted to build a world of justice and equity and compassion. And that means imagining a world very different than the one we see around us today. And so that means we come together in communities and congregations like this one to do together what we could not do alone, and to take sides for justice, to take sides for equity and for compassion. And it means that we come together in community to side with love. May it be so, and may we make it so. Amen.
Hold that story and its message in silence before our embracing meditation. call down a blessing on this sacred hour. For each time we gather for worship, we set aside a moment to expand the caring ministry of this congregation. And together we recognize the cycle of life and death, the circle of love, compassion, and witness that is at the center of this and every sacred community. We stand at the side of parents and teachers and all those whose primary spiritual practice is caring for children, for those who live with grief or chronic pain, with illnesses seen and unseen, with mental disability or addiction, with those struggling with loneliness and isolation. We pray for our neighbors in prison, those who care for family members in ill health, and those who are struggling to stay afloat in the midst of poverty. Our lives are blessed by those who knowingly and with curiosity and courage face their final days, and by those who rise above heartbreak to challenge oppression in all of its forms. We pray for those in harm's way, for the wisdom and strength of the leaders of the world, and for the people of this courageous congregation, as together we live into our longing to embody and to help build the beloved community. Will you pray with me for all these we now name? We are sad to note the death of Dr. Iris Helen Cornelius, whose memorial service was held yesterday, Saturday, August 26th, at the University Club of St. Paul. Dr. Cornelius died on June 1st at the age of 86, surrounded by family and friends. And she was a longtime member of Unity Church, and she will be greatly missed. We also mourn the death of Christopher Wright, father of Angela Newhouse and grandfather to Claire and Ellie, who died on Friday morning after a brief stay in the hospital. He was an unofficial member of Team Duncan years ago, frequently joining Brian and former Unity member Duncan Baird for lunch at W.A. Frost. No services are planned at his request. We also hold in prayer this day the 3 persons killed in Jacksonville, Florida this weekend, who were targeted solely because of their race. The anti-racist work which is at the heart of this church and our faith is not an elective course. It is to counter every act of racism and oppression with soul force. May we be strengthened in our efforts to isolate and inoculate the virus of racism and oppression. So I invite you now to speak aloud or hold in the silent sanctuary of your hearts the names of those that you would like to include in our embracing meditation today. And will you pray with me now? Holy One, source of all that brings hope, be with us now in the holy quiet of this hour. For we hold in our very hearts and our hands the silent struggles within each of us. The weary, the wounded, the jaded, the jazzed, the hopeful, the hopeless, and all that lies in between. This is a place where our prayers go not to an unseen God, but to the hearts and minds of those in this sanctuary and those of us listening and participating in this moment. For we know that what touches one will or does touch us all. I will be weary, and you will be strong. I will be grieving, and you will have recovered from your grief. I will be discouraged about the state of the world, and you will be solidly hopeful about the ways in which we repair ourselves and this fragile planet upon which we live. This is why we need each other. This is why spiritual community is so important, for we deepen our capacity to hold the whole in our small, often calloused hands. Oh, dear source of life, that silent companion of our being and our becoming, be with us now. Let us remember that what we do and who we are speaks not only to this generation, but to the generations that come after us, and to those ancestors upon whose shoulders, like tiny mice, we stand. We pause now for a moment of silence, knowing that it is indeed in silence where great things may often fashion themselves.
Let the life I lead speak for me. Let the life I lead speak for me. When I come to the end of the road and I lay down my heavy load, let the life I lead speak for me. Would you join me? Let the life I lead speak for me. Let the life I lead speak for me. When I come to the end of the road and I lay down my heavy load, let the life I lead speak for me. Let the work I do, let the work I do speak for me. Let the work I do speak for me. When I come to the end of the road and I lay down my heavy load, let the work I do speak for me. Let the friends I have, let the friends I have speak for me. Let the friends I have speak for me. When I come to the end of the road and I lay down my heavy load, let the friends I have speak for me. Let the love I share, let the love I share speak for me. Let the love I share speak for me. When I come to the end of the road and I lay down my heavy load, let the love I share speak for me.
Your support of the church is an expression of the promises we make to each other and to the world. And each Sunday, the majority of our offering is passed on to our community partners with whom we share a common cause. And today, the larger portion of our offering will be shared with the Hallie Q. Brown Food Shelf, a lighthouse of hope which is serving families in the Rondo community since 1929. This collection will help stock the shelves and provide emergency services for its clients. And Unity's Evergreen Ministry partners with Hallie Q. Brown by collecting items for its food shelf. So make a financial donation today, and then remember to bring non-perishable food items to help continually replenish our donation basket. So I'm going to invite the ushers to come forward and invite you to give as generously as you can, for we dedicate these offerings and ourselves to the greater work of the church, which is weaving a tapestry of love we call community.
Oye, mi gente, traemos la fuerza. La libertad es la única bandera. Oye, mi gente, traemos la fuerza. Listen, my people, we bring the power. La libertad es la única bandera. Liberty is the only flag. Oye, mi gente, traemos la fuerza. La libertad es la única bandera. Listen, my people, my condor, my eagle. No human being can ever be illegal. Oye, mi gente, traemos la fuerza. La libertad es la única bandera. Oye, mi gente, traemos la fuerza. La libertad es la única bandera. Listen, my people, my condor, my eagle. No human being can ever be illegal. Oye, mi gente, traemos la fuerza. La libertad es la única bandera. Oye, mi gente, traemos la fuerza. La libertad es la única bandera. Listen, my people, my condor, my eagle. No human being can ever be illegal. Listen, my people, my condor, my eagle. No human being can ever be illegal. No human being can ever be illegal. No human being can ever be illegal. No human being can ever be illegal.
What You Missed the Day You Were Absent from Fourth Grade by Brad Aaron Modlin. Mrs. Nelson explained how to stand still and listen to the wind, how to find meaning in pumping gas, how peeling potatoes can be a form of prayer. She took questions on how not to feel lost in the dark. After lunch, she distributed worksheets that covered ways to remember your grandfather's voice. Then the class discussed falling asleep without feeling you had forgotten to do something else, something important, and how to believe the house you wake in is your home. This prompted Mrs. Nelson to draw a chalkboard diagram detailing how to chant the Psalms during cigarette breaks, and how not to squirm for sound when your own thoughts are all you hear. Also, that you have enough. The English lesson was that I am is a complete sentence. And just before the afternoon bell, she made the math equation look easy. The one that proves that hundreds of questions and feeling cold and all those nights spent looking for whatever it was you lost and one person add up to something.
Forget your perfect offering. Just ring the bells that still can ring. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. That's how the light gets in. Adrian Marie Brown offers us an understanding of success that is different than perfection. And often we know success means doing the work that is complicated, even when we know it's not going to be perfect, even when we're feeling far from perfect ourselves. So I invite you into the spirit of this song to sing, to ring the bells that still can ring, and to remember that the light gets in through the cracks. The song is almost all call and response, so repeat after me. Forget your perfect offering, forget your perfect offering. Just ring the bells that still can ring, just ring the bells that... There is a crack in everything. This part goes a little faster. That's how the light gets in, that's how the light gets in. That last line is the one that's a little bit different. Let's try that whole part again. That's how the light gets in. That's how the light gets in. Forget your perfect offering. Forget your perfect offering. Just ring the bells that still can ring. Just ring the bells that still can. There is a crack in everything. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in, that's how the light gets in. Forget your perfect offering, forget your perfect offering. Just ring the bells that still can ring, just ring the bells that still can ring. There is a crack in everything, there is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in, that's how the light gets in. Forget your perfect offering, forget your perfect offering. Just ring the bells that still can ring, just ring the bells. There is a crack in everything, there is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in, that's how the light. One more. Forget your perfect offering, forget your perfect offering. Just ring the bell that still can ring, just ring the bells that still can. There is a crack in everything, there is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in, 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 that's how the light gets in. Nice. When I told you to sing out like you sing in the radio, some of you gave me a look that led me to think this wasn't going to sound as good as it's sounding. I grew up just outside of the city of Chicago. I'm a Midwesterner at heart. And I moved to Boston in the year 2000 to attend college and get a degree in hand drumming, of all things. Anyone else here have a hand drumming degree? Okay, it's just me, okay. That's all right. I was following this dream I had at the time of being a touring musician. I wanted to travel the world with some famous band, going all over the place, a different city every night of the week, playing to crowds of thousands. And I particularly remember this feeling I had in my last semester of school, imagining graduation and trying to picture some kind of musician's life ahead of me. And in that last semester, it so happened that one morning I stepped into this classroom where two of my professors, two hand drumming teachers, were chatting together. One of them was talking about his schedule. He had just the day before finished a 2-week concert tour of Morocco, playing with some incredible Middle Eastern band. And he was just the next day heading off to a 4-week tour of Europe with a group called Simon and Garfunkel. Oh, you've heard of them? Yeah, me too. I remember so vividly that he pointed to his suitcase, which was sitting open in the corner of the room. And in that moment, that suitcase, it was just the most tangible symbol of success I had ever seen. I know some people get excited about fancy cars or big houses, but I have never been so jealous of a suitcase that it got to go on this trip with him. It was so real. I remember being in awe, and I kind of interrupted him because I couldn't imagine a more perfect life than this guy had. So I kind of interrupted the conversation a little bit, and I said, are you so freaking excited that you can't even stand it? And I said it just like that, with no chill. And I remember that he kind of looked at the ground before he looked back at me, and he shook his head, and he said, you know, man, I just want to go home and see my kid. I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't say it, but in that moment, my first thought was, surely your kid is not as cool as Simon and Garfunkel. I was embarrassed, though, by how tone-deaf I'd been to this conversation that they were having. That suitcase had just a moment ago been the ultimate sign of success, but it all of a sudden, a moment later, carried a very different weight. This teacher, he knew the value of music as well as anyone I have ever met. He knew music's power to bring people together and to transform hearts and heal the wounded. But even still, he struggled to balance those values with the value of his family and home life and relationships. It was complicated. My unfolding sense of true success, of a life well lived, is that it is, first of all, a journey and not a destination, and that it is, second, an increasing embrace of our values, even in the face of increasing complexity. This reminds me of a poem by Naomi Shihab Nye called Famous, where she says, "The boot is famous to the earth, more famous than the dress shoe, which is only famous to floors. I want to be famous," she says, "in the way that a pulley is famous or a buttonhole, not because it ever did anything spectacular, but because it never forgot what it could do." Remembering what we can do, even in the overwhelming list of all that must be done in our days. Remembering what we can do is the work of we, the future ancestors. Rabbi Tarfon spoke of this in his own tradition in the 1st century AD when he said, "It is not your responsibility to finish the work of perfecting this world, but you are not free to desist from it either." My hope for my days and for yours, friends, is that we can attend to the complexity of our times with our best selves, that we can root ourselves in communities doing our best to honor our ancestors and all futures to come. My hope for us is that we can set aside the stories we've made up along the way about what success is supposed to look like. To set aside the simplistic stories we've been told about who we are or who we are supposed to be, or the stories we've been told about what our gender is supposed to mean, or what kind of work has value enough, or whether systems of injustice are tolerable just because they are normal. Growing up at any age is about growing into our values, about adapting to complicated times with grace and courage, and about remembering what we can do even in the midst of all that must be done. Now, when I think of redefining success, and when I think of our movement ancestors who lived into the complexity and faced the crises of their time, I sometimes remember this story about our Unitarian ancestor, William Ellery Channing. Channing is remembered as one of the great founders of Unitarianism. He was a preacher in the mid-1800s in Boston, and he was hailed as a model of religious leadership. He was a powerful voice for justice in his time, and he was a powerful voice for abolition in particular. But we know that success is more about the journey than the destination. And that was even true for our friend Channing. Because while he always opposed slavery, and he always agreed with the goals of the abolitionists, he wasn't always so vocal about it. The thing was that he didn't love some of the personalities in the movement. And he didn't like the way they went about things sometimes. He thought the people were a bit too complicated, a bit too unskillful. He thought the organizations were not the way he would have set them up. And generally, in particular, he didn't like that the abolitionists were so emotional, so passionate. They reminded him a little too much of the itinerant revivalists that were sweeping the country at the time. Now, you should know the only constant in my life since college is my job as an itinerant revivalist, but that's okay. I don't take his comments personally. So one night at an anti-slavery forum, all night, Will has been criticizing the movement. And Samuel May, a more active abolitionist, a leader in the movement, has been listening until he can't take Channing's criticisms any longer. And eventually he's unable to control his impatience and he interrupts, yelling, "Dr. Channing, I am tired of these complaints. It is not our fault that those who might have conducted this great reform so much more prudently than we have left us to manage as we may. It's not our fault that those who might have pleaded for the enslaved so much more wisely and so much more eloquently than we can have been silent. We are not to blame, sir, that you have not spoken. And now that inferior men have begun to act and begun to speak against what you acknowledge to be an awful system, it is not becoming of you to complain of us that we do it in an inferior style." Now this is what the kids would call a sick burn, right? And it was so sick, in fact, that Channing was unable to answer these complaints, unable to answer this rebuke, and he finally accepted the challenge, saying, "Brother May, you are right, and I have been silent too long." Now, I love that this story depicts the very moment that Channing took up the work of a life that would resonate with his ancestors, to attend to the crises of his time, not to finish it, but neither to desist from it. I love this story because I've so often been in the place of Samuel May. So many times I've ended up arguing with so-called allies who theoretically share my values, but they don't love the personalities or the way we're going about it, and they would rather criticize the movement from afar than get scuffed up in the work of real change themselves. And I love this story because I'm just as often in Channing's place. Too many times I have also blamed other people's failings for my own silence and for my own inaction. Too many times I have left my human family to suffer because I was holding on to some abstract sense of moral purity, not wanting to get scuffed up in the complexity of the real work. If you say that you are neutral in situations of injustice, you've already taken sides. But also, if you say that you have taken sides, if you say you are siding with love, but have been silent and remained inactive about that position, you have in fact remained neutral. Now, it can feel easy to look back at history's great debates with the clarity of hindsight. But we should remember that the 13th Amendment that eventually outlawed slavery left an exception for those who had been found guilty of a crime. And then, suspiciously, our country began finding more people guilty of crimes than just about any other in the world. That means that by last year, in 2022, the ACLU reported that prisons generated $11 billion in goods while paying out through forced prison labor. And they did that while paying out an average of 13 cents to 52 cents an hour. 11 billion goods in forced labor in the year 2022. Now, as Unitarian Universalists, we have covenanted as a denomination to abolish this prison system as we know it. The work of abolition continues, and it is as complicated as ever. We don't all love all the personalities. We know the movement is complicated. But if putting large numbers of people in cages made us safer, we would live in the safest country in the world. But we do not. We know that if increased funding for police made our country safer, we would live in the safest country in the world. But we do not. The work is complicated, but success means finding a way to live our values and engage in the complexity of the work anyway, even when we have more questions about it than answers. Because we know that even when we have hundreds of questions about our days, it still adds up to something. Perhaps Channing had missed that day in school, though. That day when the teacher explained those hundreds of questions add up, even when simplistic answers are elusive. And dear ones, we know that our children will someday tell similar stories of us. They will tell stories of the 2020s, a time when things were changing fast, a time when we put our neighbors in cages by the millions, a time when a pandemic arrived and not only made visible but exacerbated the inequalities of our society, a time when climate chaos arrived so concretely with devastation in our cities and our neighborhoods, in floods and fires and unbreathable air. And they will tell of how premeditated wealth inequality made every one of these crises more difficult to address. But they also, I hope, will tell the stories of Black Lives Matter and the Me Too movement and the Sunrise movement, those who came together to do together what they could not do alone and changed how the story ends. I hope they will tell the stories of those who came together like congregations like this one, doing the work that is ours to do even when the people are complicated, because the people are always complicated. And even when the path was unclear, because the path is always unclear. Writer and atheist prophet Ta-Nehisi Coates spoke of this in a letter to his son. He said, "History is not solely in your hands, but still you are called to struggle. Not because it assures you victory, but because it's what assures you an honorable and a sane life." Now, dear ones, there was a time that I thought success was traveling the world with some famous band. And, well, between you and me, if Paul Simon called me up this afternoon, I'd be on the next plane out of here. But I know now that success is more complicated than that. I know that it's finding a way to support your family even when the minimum wage is too low and housing costs are too high. And it's finding a way to make the world a little better even when we have more questions about it than answers. Love, which is the beginning and the end of the story of Unitarian Universalism, means acting for compassion and for justice, even when the people are complicated and even when the path is unclear. And the honorable struggle that Coates spoke of It means taking up the work that is ours to do, not to finish it, but never to desist from it either. So, beloveds, may we live deeply into the journey we will not regret. May we aspire to the fame of the boot and the buttonhole, never forgetting what we can do. May we love each other deeply, building up the messy and beautiful and holy communities that can face the crises of our time honestly and make this life worth celebrating. May it be so, and may we make it so. Amen.
That was some true and lively words. Thank you. Thank you. I know. Yeah, go ahead. I know you want to. Oh, that spoke to me so much. And we hope that you have found rich meaning in today's service. And there are many opportunities for you here at Unity to deepen in integrity and service and joy. So I just want to name a few things that are happening, which you can also find a longer description in your this week at Unity, found in your order of service. After today's service, you are invited to attend. This is especially for newcomers, but it's a weekly class called Finding Yourself at Unity, 11:15, up in the Gannett Room. And this week's topic is going to be on religious education programs for children, youth, and adults. So do consider joining that. Please remember that the start of 2 services begins on September 10th at 9 a.m. And what time's the second service? 11:15. Yes, nailed it. That's right. So make sure, talk to your friends and say, remember second service, 11:15. And then finally, I want to take a minute to recognize that our new minister of congregational care, the Reverend Laura Cowton, has arrived. That pod out there in the parking lot is hers, which will be removed on Monday. But Laura, would you please just stand up and identify yourself so that we can also warmly welcome you? And just a final note, on Sunday, September 17th, Reverend Karen Gustafson will be back for her last Sunday with us, and we'll also have a chance to celebrate and thank her for her ministry. So again, hope that you find many opportunities this week to put into practice some of the messages and lessons you may have learned from today. And Matt, we're going to go into our closing hymn now.
Could you help me with the shoe?
I'll be glad to.
Thank you, Kathleen, for learning this instrument on short notice today.
Oh, it's cool. All right. You got it tuned to what you want?
That's what I am. This is the song we began with. Please join me. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. For your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. You're divine, my divine. I invite you to please rise in body or spirit. Now this one I know we can do in 5-part harmony. Let's rock it out. Here we go. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. For your people. For your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are mine. You're divine, my divine. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, where you go. Where you go, I will. Where you go, where you go. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, where you go. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, for your people, for your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. You're divine, my divine. Let's add some more rhythm. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will. Where you go, I will go, be a little faster. Where you go, I will. One more. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you, for your people, for your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. You're divine, my divine. For your people, for your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. You're divine, my divine. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, one more. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Beloveds, may we go forth, remembering that our days add up to something. Go forth in honorable struggle, doing the work that is ours to do, even when simplistic answers are elusive. Go forth aspiring to the fame of the boot and the buttonhole, doing the work that is ours to do. Go in love and go in peace and go and be blessed, even as you are a blessing to others. Amen. Go in peace.